Hello, and welcome to a brand new day of free-to-play here on Magic the Gathering Arena. Wait a second. Why does it say budget IRL? Doesn't that mean in real life? If you're coming here to get the dish on the latest with me, Lord Rumfish, normally it's about the arena client. Sometimes I talk about Magic more generally. But what the heck is this pile of garbage here? And why does it have a sideboard? So I've been thinking about getting my toe back into paper Magic for a while now. I started a box of all of the cards that I have that are playable in Standard from a certain date. It's this box. It's only about half full. And rather than be a reasonable person and order a bunch of singles, I decided to just take whatever cards I happen to have on hand that I was opening out of the booster packs and boxes and things that I had bought, and just cobble together a deck based on what I owned. So, yeah, some of the card choices in here are really weird. And it's not necessarily that, you know, Invasion of Zendikar is an expensive card and I can't afford it. It's just that I don't happen to own it. And so I've got a couple of Cartographer surveys in here. So I wanted to try out a green-black deck. A long time ago when I took player surveys, I scored as Golgari for my Ravnica guild. I just like the kind of, you know, grindy, you know, mid-range ramp, whether it's like the rock style deck or whether it's more of a go big deck like this one. I just like the intersection between these two colors. So what the heck is this deck trying to do? Well, it's trying to out-ramp the opponent because I can't necessarily afford better cards than them, so I will instead use my mana to afford more expensive cards than them in terms of their actual mana value. Like this big dumb Cultivator Colossus I happen to own 2 copies of. And the idea is if we can, you know, ramp enough, draw enough cards, maybe outvalue them a bit, outsize the opponent a bit, at some point down the line, perhaps we'll cast one too many big threats and have to burn up one too many board sweepers or spot removal spells, and we can win the game. So how do we stay alive against a aggro deck? Well, you'd be surprised how much a little bit of ramp and a little bit of life gain can go a long way against an aggro opponent. So if we can go, you know, Gala Greeters on 2 into like Nissa on turn 3, ramp up with something like an Invasion of Zendikar, Cartographer Survey, or an Open the Way, not only are we positioning well for like a 7-drop in the next turn or two, but we might be able to use the 2 mana that Nissa generates to get out another 2-drop. And she might just find us another Gala Greeters because it's an elf. So we might have a play that same turn off the 2 mana that we generate. We can also gain life from the Tranquil Frillback. This is a card that's been seeing best of 3 play, and if you go to a standard event, it's going to be best of 3. That's how tournaments work. So this is a card that wears a lot of different hats. It can be Graveyard Hate, which can be very important. It can be Artifact Enchantment Destruction. That can be good in certain matchups. And it can gain life, which is a big deal against an aggressive opponent. There are quite a few decks where I would say 2 of the 3 modes are going to be good. And once in a while, you'll get value out of all of the modes. There's 1 copy of Sheoldred here. I opened this card out of a box of Jumpstart from Dominaria United I bought the silly thing for like 40 bucks or something, maybe a little less than that. And lo and behold, I don't know how well you can see her. Maybe there's some glare, but I got my very own Sheoldred the Apocalypse. I don't even like this card that much, but I respect how powerful it is. I never would have bought a single of it, but since I own it, I'm going to play it. We got a board sweeper here. We've got the Invasion of Fiora. Again, happen to own one. Go ahead and play it. And flipping this into Marchesa is pretty nasty. Marchesa is quite a presence on the battlefield. Menace Death Touch makes her a pretty mean attacker. When she attacks, she removes all counters from a permanent, which, you know, may or may not matter, but if it does, she just kills a planeswalker or just wins a battle. And she can be a card draw resource. I got an Izoni. It's actually the dossier art, which I don't like, but it's the one that I own. Also, Izoni being an elf is something that Nissa can find out of your deck. I have a copy of Toxrill. Of course I'm going to use it. Cultivator Colossus is mostly big and dumb. I don't know if you're going to be able to do the, you know, play lands from your hand, draw cards thing very often. But it is a gigantic threat that the opponent basically must kill. Having trample and power toughness equal to the number of lands you control could make this big enough that the opponent could just die in one hit. They really can't afford to be taking that kind of damage, so they've got to point removal at this thing. Titan of Industry, I am sorely tempted to buy some singles of this to put in the deck. At the moment, I just own the one copy. We got a bunch of sneaky one-ofs. You know, we've got this Green Sun's Twilight, which should really be like up here with the 6 drops. Could fetch a gigantic thing out of our deck straight away along with a land. Could be a pretty nice hit. Dig Up can find us a basic land early, or it can be a tutor later in the game. Undying Malice could be a back-breaking play to pull back one of our giant threats after the opponent thought it was dead. Especially if it's got an ETB trigger like Izoni or the Titan of Industry. We've got some ramp spells, such as they are. We've got some card draw, such as it is. I actually like Investigator's Journal quite a bit. Blot Out, I thought about running more copies of this one. It can deal with some really problematic things like Planeswalkers, even hexproof Planeswalkers. We got a sneaky fight rigging in the list. This isn't really a fight rigging deck, but if we ramp up to our 6 and 7 drops and start playing those, fight rigging can just get us right on into another one, and then keeps growing our creatures for the rest of the game. Bloodline Culling's a weird one of. I happened to open one out of a double feature of all things. So the copy that I have is black and white foil. But the modality here is pretty good. It can kill a Sheoldred. It can also, you know, do a pretty clean sweep of like Boros tokens. It's maybe not a poorly positioned card at the moment. And a few other weird, like, fun one-ofs. We got an Avabrook Caretaker. So it's already hexproof on its own, which makes it annoying to the opponent. But this becomes downright deadly if it flips to nighttime. If the opponent's got a Celestis and they let it flip to night and it gets to your turn and you resolve the Hollow Hinge Huntmaster, that would be quite a beating. There's also Old Rutstein. This isn't really a graveyard deck, but Old Rutstein is just like a value engine. Just generally useful all-around card, and it does give us fodder for Izoni to collect evidence. Mana base is whatever I could cobble together, so if you're wondering about like all the Riveteers, Overlooks, Evolving Wilds, and the One Escape Tunnel, It's what I own. This is what I own. I like the one of Drannith Ruins. I do have another one, but I think the number of times you could use 2 Drannith Ruins in one turn, or one turn cycle, is pretty few and far between. It can be fun to have the one copy. I don't know that the second copy ever really can fire at the same time as the first one. Yes, I own a Zayator's Proving Ground. Dreamroot Cascade is just because of Toxrill. 2 Haunted Mire, I'm just trying to make sure I maximize my green and black land count here. Lucky enough to have a Deathcap Glade. And we've got 15 basics here to try to go with our 9 fetch lands, 1 Invasion of Zendikar, and potentially the Dig Up. Sideboard-wise, we've got some Pilfer for control opponents, we've got some Nightclubbers for aggro, we've got Urborg Scavengers and Unlicensed Hearse for even more graveyard hate, if that match comes up. We can go a little bit more mid-rangey with a Bloodvial Purveyor or Henrika Domnathi. Henrika is also pretty good against aggro because she can immediately flip into a sizable flying Death Touch Lifelinker. A couple of whack. These are specifically for white decks. You know, if you're playing against Boros tokens, they can invoke out the 4/4. For 1 black mana, you can whack that thing dead. Pretty good. There's some other useful targets. You know, like the one that taps 3 things to scry and get a +1 counter. Sawblade Slinger, I don't know if this much artifact hate is necessary with what I have in the deck already. But if I find myself against, you know, like an artifact deck, I will side in the Sawblade Slinger and they will be very sad. Cruelty of Gix, just if the matchup feels a little slower, if it feels like I can get away with it, then sure, I'll pop in the Cruelty of Gix. Shadow of Mortality is actually another piece of tech I want to try against aggro. Because as your life total approaches 7, Shadow of Mortality approaches 2 mana. And this could be a very stabilizing presence on the battlefield that also makes a heck of a crackback if they're not being careful. So that's the deck. This is probably the part where you expect me to play the deck now, but I don't really want to spin my rare wildcards. I've got a Green Sun's Twilight I don't own. I've got 2 Gala Greeters that I don't own. And I want to save up my rares for when I do the deck building toolbox guide for Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Also, this deck is going to change. And it's going to change pretty soon. I've ordered a bunch of stuff on Amazon so I can set up a table. I can use my phone camera and my current recording equipment, and I can record myself doing some pack openings, box openings. That doesn't mean the channel's going to change a lot or anything. It's just like another thing I can do. The channel's always been kind of a variety show. I've never stuck too hard and fast to any one aspect of this channel. Sometimes I cover Limited, sometimes I cover Constructed, sometimes I talk about Magic in general. And now I can add the angle of doing box openings. So as I open these boxes, I'm going to be increasing my collection of standard cards, and that means the list you see before you is not going to stay the same. Things are going to move and shift, so I don't even know how necessary it is to test this particular build, because I'm going to be replacing it again right around the corner. So what do you all think? Are you interested in hearing a little bit about my paper tournament life? The decks that I can cobble together out of my very minor collection. that I have in real life? Are you interested in seeing some booster pack openings? They're going to still be budget. It won't be free to play, obviously, but they're going to be boxes that I can get a hold of on the cheap. Right, so what I've got here right now and what I've got coming, I got a draft box of Lost Caverns of Ixalan, which I'm excited to open and add to my collection. Got that for something like $106, with tax and everything included. I've got a box of Aftermath Epilogue boosters that I picked up for, with tax and everything, like $42 and some change. So super cheap. And I've also got a box of Murders at Karlov Manor play boosters that are coming in, and I managed to find them for a steal on TCG Player. Someone was selling it for $99.98 shipped. So with tax, it was like $105.98. That seemed like a heck of a bargain to me. That is a price I'm willing to pay for a box of play boosters. It's not that there are no good cards in Murders at Karlov Manor. You know, people have rejected the set for a number of reasons. I went over that in a video. I'll link it in the description. But there are a lot of strong cards, and cards that would definitely update this list in Murders at Karlov Manor. So, anyway, I hope you all are excited to see me do some box openings and things. Maybe talk a little bit about some paper magic. And obviously the channel is going to continue to be arena focused. I'm going to continue to do, you know, standard best of one. I'm going to continue to do draft. If I get really ambitious, maybe I'll do a little bit of sealed. Maybe I'll do a little bit of, who knows, historic brawl. I've also got something special in the works coming up. So right towards the tail end of March, beginning of April, check back in with the channel, and you might find something really cool right around that time. If I've gotten you any entertainment, or if you at least hope I'll be entertaining in the future, then like and subscribe, check out my other videos, and until next time, never stop honing your critical thinking and empathy.